Hey, check this out. Noble Gold, one of the sponsors of our show, has just been picked by Consumer Affairs, the rating agency, as the overall #1 gold IRA company in the US. Talk to the team today if you're thinking of precious metals. And if you're quick, they're giving away an incredible 1/10 ounce American Eagle Gold proof coin with every qualifying IRA or 401k rollover. You can't go wrong with Noble Gold. Call the team now at 877-646-5347 to find out more, or visit noblegoldinvestments.com. Hey, Inspire Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. Jean Nolan here. Thank you so much for joining us again today. Thank you for liking, for sharing, for commenting, for subscribing, and hitting the notifications button so you'll get notified about new videos. All right, let's dive right into it. Today's video, I think, is highly important because we're going to dive into the information warfare, the history warfare, and how that determines our perception and reality and what we can do about it. And I want to lead with a story that will set us up for the greater picture. So please stick around. I think this is highly important. The World Economic Forum published an article suggesting it would be a solid, rational move for children to be implanted with microchips. Now, you guys know the World Economic Forum. You know Klaus Schwab and the Party of Davos, his people that meet every year with the world leaders, economic leaders, political leaders that have infused all the governments that are running the Great Reset. That's the World Economic Forum. So now they're saying there's solid, rational reasons to implant your children with microchips. Now, before we go deeper into the story, I need to tell you something, okay? And I'm going to put on the right hat for that. Okie doke, let me tell you something. I believe most of the population has already been chipped and has been chipped for a long time. I just believe they are now legitimizing it, and what they're doing is they are upgrading their chips and making the nanotechnology in your body even better. Okay, let's go back. Okay, back to our regular scheduled programming. As scary as chip implants may sound, they form part of a natural evolution that wearables once underwent. Hearing aids or glasses no longer carry a stigma. Listen, they say natural evolution. Nothing is natural about a microchip implant, and hence there's no natural evolution. They are accessories and are even considered a fashion item. Likewise, implants will evolve into a commodity, writes scientist Kathleen Phillips in a blog on the World Economic Forum. The article pushes the notion that augmented humans are inevitable and that global elites need to establish a power monopoly over the technology in order to ethically regulate it. Global elites need to establish a control over the technology to ethically regulate it. Sounds absolutely awesome. Sounds wonderful. Sounds like in the best interest of every man and woman and child on this earth. The augmenting technology will help in all stages of life. Children in learning environment, professionals at work, and ambitious senior citizens. There are many possibilities, writes Phillips. Should you implant a tracking chip in your child? Asks the scientist, adding, there are solid, rational reasons for it, like safety. Of course, isn't it security and safety? Trade your freedom, trade your liberty for security. It'll have a great outcome. Man, have the past years shown how beautifully that is working. As previously highlighted, World Economic Forum chief Klaus Schwab wrote in his book, The Great Reset, that the fourth industrial revolution would lead to a fusion of our physical, digital, and biological identity. We've talked about this, which he clarifies is implantable microchips that can read your thoughts. I mean, nothing new under the sun. At the same time, weren't we called conspiracy theorists, tinfoil hats, the worst of the worst when we talked about this 10, 15, 20 years ago? When people wrote books about it 40, 50 years ago, they knew that was coming because it was already there. But now, they're going for the TikTokers, the Instagrammers, and the influencers, and they're going to push this as this amazing thing, like in Scandinavian countries, in the Netherlands, it's already happening. Young people are using implantables to go to work and unlock the door and do everything with that. People that are just dumber than dumb, absolutely unimaginable, but they've been brainwashed into believing this. Of course, there's other reasons, right? During this year's Davos meeting, of global elitists, Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla explained to Schwab how soon there would be ingestible pills, a pill with a tiny microchip that would send a wireless signal to relevant authorities when the pharmaceutical has been consumed. You know what Bourla said, the CEO of Pfizer? Just imagine the compliance. We can now force people to take their medicine. Excuse me, but this is dystopian insanity, but here we are. And why is this topic important? Why are we talking about this? We have to finally be willing to go the full distance in our research, in our quest, in our seeking of truth, of who we are, of history. This is signaling us the insanity that we've come to, how we've lost our culture, our morals, our virtues, our values, everything. And why is that so? I believe we have strayed so far from what it means to be a true man or a woman or a child on this earth because it isn't that we have just lost our culture and history. I think what we believe our history to be, our origins and everything else, is a complete and utter fabrication. And what is happening now points us to that. So many things are not adding up in our history. So many things don't make any sense. So many researchers are coming out every day now, connecting the dots, showing that we are not at all what we believe to be. And part of the things why it's so difficult to do this today, to research is, and we're going to go into the information warfare, is because you are banned from asking certain questions. Do you know that 16 European countries have laws that ban any kind of, they say Holocaust denial, but what they really say when you go and read those laws, like in Germany and in Austria, you are not allowed to question any fact about the period of the Second World War, about the Nazis, about that regime. Nothing. You're not allowed to question any of that, not even small things, or you will be jailed, you will be fined, you will be stigmatized, you will be banned from society, you will be censored. Well, what does that remind us of? Of course, that's what is happening online too. Why it is so hard for people to understand that history was fabricated or changed or manipulated is, and they think that today we have a free flow of information. Just look at the past years. How many millions of accounts online were suspended, terminated, banned, censored, fake fact-checked, corrected, put out of context. It's not just that. They're literally deleting the internet. When you go, a lot of people have done this experiment. They go to Google, the biggest search machine in the world, and then they type in some subject that might be controversial or could be controversial. I don't know, climate change or COVID-19, any of those subjects. You type it in and it says 6 billion results. But when you keep scrolling down, you will notice that, first of all the first pages are simply just mainstream media, the narrative, nothing else. But then what you notice is they delete results. So you end up with not 6 billion, you end up with 150 results that all say the same story. Now, for those of us who remember a time of a freer flow of information, we can still try to find our sources somewhere else. But what about the kids that are growing up with this? They think this is it, right? Just like we thought before, the lexicon, that is it. Like we thought the history book, that is it. But it was the same game even back then. And outside of our lived memory, people that are maybe 100 years old and can still tell the tale, I have a hard time trusting anything. I mean, historians and serious researchers that have an archaeological background, that have any scientific background for that matter, they've come out and said that somewhere between 300 and 1,000 years have been added to a recent history to the last 2,000 years. So according to them, we might live in the 11th or the 18th century right now, believing it is the year 2022 after Christ, when it really is not. The thing is, the deeper someone dives into it, the more it becomes clear that whether those numbers are completely correct, nothing adds up whatsoever. We have an interesting theory about history that is never discussed in mainstream, except for maybe in Russia a little bit. And that is the Tartarian Empire. We've talked about this. We have Max Egan on. We're going to continue to dive into this topic because it's very interesting. But in 2013, Russian President Vladimir Putin inaugurated a new archive where Tartaria maps are made available to the public. And this is in an effort to correct the falsified history of his country and of his people, which of course has been completely fabricated in the 18th century, at least according to our current mainstream sources. But the Tartarian Empire, for example, I mean, we know it has existed, right? We know that parts of China and Mongolia, was once an empire that was called Tartaria. But what is more interesting is that the people that are connecting the dots and have done deep research actually think that Tartarian Empire was spanning all across the world, even in North America. And what are indicators for that? Well, in North America, we have the older cities, which are, it's all after the 15th century, according to official history. But some of those buildings, some of those infrastructures, the size, the timelines, nothing adds up. The architecture doesn't add up with that period. You would have to assume that maybe there was a culture before the arrival of the discoverers. We all know Columbus didn't discover, and Marco Polo and whoever else was credited with that. We all know that's not the official history. But interestingly enough, these buildings that we see even today in some of the old cities, some people believe are thousands of years old, not just a few hundred more, thousands of years old. They might represent some sort of technology. And I have always thought, and this is where it gets into my intuition on all this, I've always asked myself, with a landmass as vast as North America, you would have had, speaking from the European settlers' perspective, you would have had more than enough space to peacefully coexist with the American Indian or Native American clans and tribes and nations. A lot of stories indicate that the Native American chiefs actually wanted that, considered that, offered that. Why was it such an important task to not just take away the land or remove them from the land, but to take away the culture, the clan structure, the leadership, the language, the religions, the oral traditions? Because that's how they passed down history, through oral teaching, storytelling. It wasn't written, it was storytelling. Why did they interrupt that process? Why was it so important to completely annihilate the cultures down to, it's so watered down and so little is kept to this day? I believe because I think if we would have access today to their knowledge and their historic accounts, we would actually see that history in North America is something completely different than we believe it to be. Completely different. There's prophecy from elders from the 20th century, so in the 1900s, that even point to the fact that their forefathers, their ancestors, way back when, prophesied the return of the other race or another race that would come here and do certain things and subdue the land and subdue the people like they maybe had done before, maybe the Tartarian Empire. We don't know, but what we do know is that history is most likely not just altered, not just changed, not just manipulated, but fabricated. We can see this today. We only have to compare our current situation to the situation back then. So what was our history? We don't know. There were mudfloods, there were resets. According to Jason Brashear, the Archaics YouTube channel, every 138 years there is a great reset on this earth. What happens? Do all people disappear? Is everyone killed? Are only a certain few? We simply don't know. But we need to go the distance. We need to put the best people together. We need to put indigenous folklore. We need to put even religious folklore. We need to put oral traditions of those tribes that are still intact together and compile a compilation of information that is so profound and that will connect the dots. We need to begin doing that because we are so close to the point of no return. What do I mean by that? I've said this often before. The praised blockchain technology that most people only know because of cryptocurrency, but blockchain, the way it actually works is this insane amount of computing power that it takes to create these information blocks. And I'm not a technical guy, so I'm speaking in layman's terms here, but the idea is, in terms of this cabal, is to censor as much information, delete it, alter it, remove it as possible. So when the full transition into the 100% digital age happens, the information that is available at that time will go into the blockchain. And then it takes such insane amount of computing power to change anything in a blockchain that it will be almost impossible. And all of the internet will run on blockchain. Everything, at least as far as I understand, it will be almost impossible to alter or change any of that information anymore. So what we're losing now, if we're not doing anything about it, the information, we will lose it forever, just like our ancestors have lost their history. We need to go all the way. We finally need to focus on culture rather than bigger economic expansion in this capitalist system, which is not free market. It is simply a for-profit system. Not free market, is a monopolized, top-down, centralized, controlled system that keeps everybody in this loop, and it doesn't allow people to remember, research, or recreate culture. And that is what we need, because that is the foundation for our moral values, for our ethical values, for all the other principles, how we live. It is faith, it is culture, and it's the real original deal that we were given. And I mean, we're now seeing every day an exponential growth and interest in this. People are realizing, hold on, it's not just that maybe this guy financed this side of the war and was a little different. No, it's fabricated. It seems like everything was made up. Now we need to go and find a way to bring back that knowledge. It's all in the field, right? It's in the morphogenetic field. There's a field around us that holds all information. So we need to learn again how to access it, dig into it, dive into it, connect with it, absorb from it, and bring truth back to the light, to the people. That is our journey. We'll dive deeper into the historic issues of this, but I just want to encourage everyone, open your minds to this. This is the story of our lives is so important. The story of who we are. We are being lied to every day. You can see it in the here and now. It's been like that since the get-go. I believe our historic accounts are not true. I believe writings are falsified. I believe so much has been put in place to make a false history. It makes us lose everything. It makes us lose who we are. It makes us lose our faith. It makes us lose our culture, our values. And that's what we see in the world today, with discussions about 57 genders, fluidity in pregnant men, about no more red lines, everything goes, anything goes, violence, looting, killing, pedophilia, everything, nothing is sacred anymore. And I believe that is why we need to dig deep within ourselves and in our history. Inspire Tribe, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you. We love you. And we'll be back with you again very, very soon.